Have you ever loved someone so quietly, for so long, that you forgot what your voice sounded like when it wasn't whispering around them? I used to think that silence was the safest place to hide a feeling, especially the kind of feeling that could change everything if spoken out loud. My name is May Carter. I'm 33. I draw for a living, mostly children's books, sometimes for clients who pay too little and expect too much. I live in a one-bedroom apartment above a coffee shop in Denver. It smells like burnt espresso and wet paint most days. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Every morning, I walk past the mirror and tell myself I'm okay. Most days I even believe it. But then there are nights like tonight. Nights where something quiet inside me begs to be louder. Not for the world, just for one person. Nate Harlow. We met freshman year in college. He had this laugh that made the whole room turn. And I was always the one holding the camera, capturing it. For years, he's called me his ride or die. The one he vented to about breakups, dreams, his failures, and frustrations. He's dated models, a violinist, even a bartender who wrote poetry. I was always the friend, the safe one, the afterthought. But I loved him. In the kind of way that didn't demand to be loved back. I was the keeper of his secrets and the quiet holder of my own. And tonight, something inside me said, enough. Not because I wanted him to say it back, but because I needed to say it, even if only to myself. I didn't plan to send it. The message, I mean. It started as a way to breathe, like cracking open a window after sitting in a room that's been closed too long. I opened my notes app, typed without punctuation, no filter, no plan, just feeling. Nate, I know we've been friends for years. I know this might change things, but I've loved you. Quietly. Constantly. And maybe it's not love. Maybe it's just me wanting to be seen, just once by you. Not as your backup plan, not as your safety net. Just me. I stared at it for 20 minutes. Then copied it, pasted it into a blank text bubble, typed his name. My thumb hovered over send. I wasn't going to do it, but something slipped. Literally. I dropped the phone. It hit the screen, and like fate, had been waiting, the message sent. My stomach dropped. I froze. Cold, sharp, like winter hitting skin straight from summer. I fumbled to unsend it. Too late. 10 minutes passed. Nothing. 15, I paced the apartment, heart pounding. Had I just ruined everything? Then my phone buzzed. Not from Nate. Unknown number. I think you sent this to the wrong person. But I read it. I hope that's okay. I blinked. Reread it 3 times. Wrong person? I checked the number. I hadn't messaged Nate. 1 digit off. I had sent my most honest truth to a stranger. Another buzz. I don't know you. But your words? They sound like someone who's been waiting a long time to be heard. Who was this? Why weren't they mocking me? Why did I feel safer with this unknown voice than I ever did with Nate? I typed back, sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Seconds later, maybe not, but I think I was meant to read it. I sat down on the floor, phone in hand, mind spinning, heart still. I didn't answer right away. His message just sat there, blinking at me like it was waiting to be let in. Maybe not, but I think I was meant to read it. Who says that? Not a scammer, not a creep, not someone who's playing games, just someone listening. So I answered, sorry again. I didn't mean to unload on a stranger. A moment later, it didn't feel like unloading. It felt like honesty. That's rare. I hesitated. Something about the way he replied. It wasn't overly kind or rehearsed. It was quiet, measured, present. Do you always read messages meant for other people? I asked. Only when they feel like they're somehow also meant for me. That one hit harder than I expected. I looked around my living room. Everything suddenly felt too still, too familiar. like I'd been having conversations with the wrong people in the right places for too many years. So I asked, "What's your name?" There was a long pause. "E? Just E? For now." I should have ended it there. Logged off, gone to bed, filed the whole thing under random digital accident. But I didn't. "Well, I'm May." May. The name suits you. Soft, but not fragile. It wasn't flirting. It wasn't even charm. It was precise. Real. He didn't ask where I lived, what I looked like. He didn't send emojis or question marks stacked like demand. Just silence. Then, "Can I ask you something, May?" "Sure." What did you hope he'd say back? I didn't have an answer. Not a real one. I just stared at the message for a long time, wondering why someone I didn't know was making me feel more seen in 3 texts than Nate had in 3 years. I started typing, then backspaced, then typed again. Nothing, probably. I just needed to say it out loud somewhere. I get that. And for some reason, I believed him. I don't usually answer unknown numbers, not because I'm rude, because most things sent by mistake should stay that way. But that message, I read it once, then again, and then I just sat there, holding my phone like it was something fragile. It wasn't meant for me. I knew that instantly, but it didn't matter. It felt like walking past a door left slightly open. You're not supposed to look. But something about the way the light spills out, you do. Her words weren't perfect. They were raw, uneven, scared. But God, they were honest. And maybe I've been in rooms too long where people only say what they're expected to. Maybe that's why I couldn't. Put the phone down. I hesitated before typing. Deleted 3 drafts of a reply. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew this wasn't some throwaway moment. Not for her. And if I answered, I had to mean it. So I did. "I think you sent this to the wrong person, but I read it. I hope that's okay." She almost didn't respond. And I thought, good. Maybe I shouldn't have stepped in. But then she did. And for the first time in months, I wasn't CEO Eli Stone, not the headline, not the problem solver. Just a man in a quiet room, listening to a woman who didn't even know who I was, but still managed to reach something in me I thought was long gone. After that first night, I thought it was over. Just a strange moment in a stranger week. But the next night, my phone buzzed again. "What's something you wish someone asked you about?" I stared at the screen. No, hey. No small talk. Just a question. Direct, simple, disarming. I typed back, why I stopped drawing people. Then, I set the phone down, waited, regretted, until the reply came. "And why did you?" I told him the truth, that I once painted someone I loved, and they never even saw themselves in it. After that, the brush started to feel like betrayal. He didn't say that's sad, didn't rush to fix it. He just said, that makes sense. And that was all it took for me to keep going. That night, and the ones that followed, we talked about things we didn't tell other people. He told me about a noise that never left him after his father's funeral. The way grief hums under success, if you're not careful. I told him about my mother's cardigan, how I still sleep with it, even though it smells like old cotton and ghosts. No one judged. No one flinched. It became our ritual, just a message a night, sometimes 2. Never rushed, never forced. He never asked for a photo, never asked what I looked like. And that silence where those questions should have been, it made me feel safer than I'd felt in years, and maybe that's when it started. Not the love, but the remembering, that I still had things worth saying, and maybe someone worth saying them to. One night, maybe a week in, I almost asked him, "What do you look like? Where do you live?" The usual curiosity. But the question didn't feel right in my mouth. So instead, I asked, "Is it weird that I don't want To know who you are, he replied almost instantly. Actually, I think it's why this works. That was the night we made the only rule we ever really followed. No names, no photos, no real-world details. Not because we were hiding, but because, in some way, we were finally showing. The kind of showing that didn't depend on face value. That wasn't about the past, or the job, or the people who expected us to be something, just the thoughts we didn't say out loud. The fears we filtered out of conversations with people who were too quick to reassure us. The versions of ourselves that weren't curated. We called it the in-between. Like we were living in a small space that didn't exist anywhere else. Not in our phones, not in real life, but somewhere suspended, untouched, unpressured. He said something I never forgot. I don't know what you look like, but I've never seen someone clearer. I didn't answer right away, because something in me cracked. Not broke. Just softened. This wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the first time in a long time I didn't feel like I was auditioning for it. It happened in the middle of a conversation about music. He'd asked, "What song feels like you?" I paused, then sent one I hadn't listened to in years, a quiet piano track, no lyrics, just ache pressed into melody. He replied, "It sounds like longing, like someone waiting at a door that never opened." And just like that, I remembered, not the song, but the version of me that used to play it on loop. Back when I still believed someone might wait at mine. I didn't reply right away, because something was happening. Quietly, inside me. It wasn't that Eli reminded me of Nate. He didn't. But he reminded me of someone else. Someone I hadn't thought about in years. Me. The version of me before disappointment made me smaller. Before I stopped sending long messages or finishing my own stories. Before I learned to keep everything short, easy, unbothered. Eli wasn't just a stranger. He was holding up a mirror, not to who I'd become, but to who I'd buried. And it terrified me how quickly I wanted to be seen again. Not just liked. Not just wanted. Recognized. I wasn't supposed to teach that day. The regular instructor at the community center had called. Out last minute. I owed her a favor, so I showed up, hair barely brushed, coffee half spilled on my sleeve. It was a beginner sketch class, nothing fancy. Mostly older folks, a few curious teenagers. The kind of class where no one's trying to impress anyone. I was halfway through setting up the supplies when I noticed him. Back row. Dark sweater. Shoulders slightly tense, like he was trying not to take up space. He didn't raise his hand. Didn't speak until the class was already halfway in. But when I walked past, he looked up. And I swear, for a second, I forgot how to breathe. His eyes were the kind you don't expect to see in a place like this. Not because they were beautiful, though they were, but because they looked familiar. Not in the face. In the way they paused. Like he was recognizing me too. At break, he approached the table. Held out his hand. "Hi, I'm Elliot." Elliot. It didn't click. Not right away. "May," I said, shaking his hand. "Nice to meet you." His grip was steady, but there was something else underneath it. A flicker, like he was holding something in. "I'm not really an artist," he added, "but I'm trying to get better at noticing things." I smiled, half teasing. "That's 90% of it anyway." And he laughed. Quiet, almost to himself. Good. Then I might already be halfway there. I didn't know yet. Not fully, but something in me whispered, "You've heard that voice before." She looked at me a little longer than usual. Not with suspicion. With something softer. Like a memory tugging at the edge of her mind. "Have we met before?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't think so." She nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced. And that moment, that tiny second of her searching my face. I almost told her. Almost. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I wasn't ready for what it might undo. What? Do you say to someone whose heart you've held in complete anonymity? What do you say to someone who's only let herself be vulnerable because she believed she was doing so in the dark? You don't say anything. You stay still and quiet and terrified that the version of you she trusted isn't the one standing in front of her. Because the version of me she knew, he didn't carry this weight in his posture. He didn't wear a name like Elliot Stone, the one attached to corporate titles and impossible expectations. He just listened. He just saw her. And maybe she saw me too. Just not like this. So when she looked at me again, brow furrowed, lips parting like she might ask something else, I smiled, carefully, and changed the subject. Your demo on shading? That was actually the first time light made sense to me. Her face lit up. Just slightly, and I knew then, if I told her too soon, I'd lose the one thing I'd been trying to protect. Not my secret. Her trust. That night, I lay in bed. Phone, face up. Waiting. As always, just past midnight, the message came. If today had a color, what would it be? I smiled. It was such a classic question. Poetic, unexpected, thoughtful. A soft gray, I typed back. The kind that makes you want to stay in bed, but not out of sadness. Just stillness. He replied, some grays are safe. Like fog. You don't see far, but it's quiet in there. I stared at that sentence longer than I should have. Because earlier, during class, Elliot had said something similar. When we were mixing charcoal, and I joked about everything I drew looking muddy. Maybe muddy's just misunderstood, he'd said. Some grays are gentle. They let your eyes rest. At the time, I brushed it off. But now, it was there again. The same phrasing. The same way of softening silence. I put my phone down, rolled onto my side, and told myself I was imagining things. It's a big city. A lot of people read the same books. Maybe we all have a little fog in us. But still, something in me had shifted. It wasn't fear. Not exactly. Just this slow, careful awareness that maybe the lines between the two versions of connection in my life weren't as separate as I thought. And what scared me more than being wrong was what would happen if I was right. We didn't plan it. It just happened. I started staying a little longer after class. He started arriving a little earlier. He was quiet at first, still in the back row, still careful not to take too much space. But then one afternoon, when I forgot my thermos, he handed me a paper cup from the corner cafe. I guessed hazelnut. You seem like someone who forgives bitterness, but still prefers sweetness. I looked up, surprised. He shrugged. Lucky guess. I wanted to ask, how did you know? But I didn't, and instead, I smiled, because it felt good. The kind of good that doesn't need to be named out loud. He'd help me clean up after class, pick up brushes I dropped, organize charcoal sets in color order like it meant something. We didn't talk about anything dramatic, mostly about simple things, like how hard it is to find a coat that's both warm and flattering, or how some silences feel like a held breath, and others like an exhale. Sometimes I'd catch him watching the students, not me, especially the quiet ones, and I could tell. He saw them. The way he once saw me, when I was just a voice behind a wrong number, and I started wondering, was I falling for him in real life? Or had I always been, and only just now had a face to give it? That evening, class ended early. The rain outside was soft and unbothered, like it wasn't trying to interrupt anyone. I stayed behind to organize a few boxes. Elliot offered to help. I didn't say no. We ended up sitting on the floor, backs against the studio wall. It smelled faintly of chalk and paint thinner, oddly comforting. I don't remember what started it. Maybe the silence. Maybe just the way he waited. Not like someone expecting a confession, but like someone who'd sit with you whether it came or not. So I told him, not everything, but enough. I've been doing this for almost 10 years, I said quietly. Teaching, painting, showing up. But there were days I'd walk out of here and feel invisible. He didn't interrupt, just nodded, just listened. People think artists are expressive, I continued. But sometimes, I think we create just to hear ourselves say something we can't say out loud. Then I looked at him. It's lonely, you know, being the one who always looks like she's okay. Especially when you're not. His eyes softened, not with pity, but with something more honest. Yeah, he said. I know that feeling. And, for a moment, I forgot I was talking to Elliot, because it sounded so much like E, the way he didn't rush me, the way he let silence fill the spaces where other people would fumble for comfort. In that moment, I didn't feel invisible. I felt heard. And maybe that was the first time I truly wanted to be seen. Some nights I couldn't sleep, not because of guilt, because of her. Her voice. Her stories. The way she opened up to me without asking for anything in return. She thought she was talking to Elliot. She had no idea I was E, that the person she'd trusted in the dark was the same man sitting next to her during daylight. And the more she told me about her father's silence, about how she used to fake being happy at gallery events just to make people comfortable, the more I realized she didn't just need someone to listen. She needed someone who could be real, and I wasn't. Not completely. Every moment I spent with her now felt like I was stealing something I hadn't earned. But here's the thing. If I told her the truth, I risked breaking everything. She'd never look at me the same way again. But if I didn't, I'd be lying to someone who finally made me feel like myself. It wasn't about pride anymore, or fear. It was about this impossible, stupid question that kept echoing in my chest. Do I deserve her trust if I built it under a false name? And worse, if I lose her, will I ever be honest again with anyone? I didn't have an answer. So, I did what cowards do. I stayed silent. For now. That night, I didn't expect him to text. We hadn't messaged in a few days. Our conversations had been shifting. Fewer questions, more pauses. Like we were both waiting for something to settle. Then, just after midnight, a single message came through. If someone wasn't who you thought they were, but everything they gave you still felt real, would it matter? I stared at the screen. Read it. Reread it. Was this a confession? A riddle? Or just one of his abstract late-night thoughts? But this one felt different. It wasn't poetic. It was trembling. I typed a reply, erased it, typed another, deleted that too. Finally, I just wrote, "Is there something you want to tell me?" No answer. Minutes passed, then half an hour. Then I put the phone down and turned off the lamp. But I didn't sleep, because that question didn't feel hypothetical. It felt close. Too close. Like someone had opened a door and was waiting to see if I'd step through or slam it shut. It was a normal morning. I was sipping cheap coffee, scrolling without really reading, just filling silence before heading to class. And then, I saw it, my name, my face. On a blog I didn't follow, headline bold and blinking on the homepage of an art publication. Anonymous Muse. Who's the woman seen with Sinclair heir Elliot Nash? I clicked before I could stop myself. There it was. A photo. Of me. Not staged, not posed. I was laughing. Elliot, or Eli, or whoever he was looking at me like I was the whole sky. We were outside the studio, maybe 2 weeks ago. I didn't even know anyone was watching. The article wasn't cruel. If anything, it praised me, called me enigmatic, refreshingly low profile, suggested that I might be inspiring Elliot's mysterious return to the art world. But none of that mattered, because suddenly, nothing felt private anymore. The messages, the looks, the quiet, all of it felt exposed. And for a moment, just a moment, I wondered if this had all been a setup from the start. Was I part of some rebrand? Was I just convenient? I wanted to text him, to ask, to scream. But instead, I just stared at the photo, at his eyes frozen in a frame I never agreed to be in. And all I could think was, you promised me quiet. You promised me honesty. I didn't text him. I went straight to the studio. He was already there, alone, rearranging the brushes like he always did when nervous. When he saw me, he smiled like nothing was wrong. And that, more than the headline, more than the photo, was what broke me. You knew, I said. No greeting. No explanation. Just that. He stopped moving. Didn't ask what, didn't pretend. He just looked tired, and then he nodded. Yeah, I did. I folded my arms, not to shield myself, just to keep from shaking. How long? Since the first week. Since I realized the voice in those messages was the same person I was watching paint clouds on a Monday afternoon. And you didn't say anything? I didn't know how, he said. Every day it got harder, because you trusted me more, and I didn't want to lose that. My laugh was dry, small, disbelief more than anger. You didn't want to lose my trust, so you built it on a lie? He opened his mouth, closed it. I didn't plan this, May. I didn't set you up. I swear. Then why did a photographer know who I was before I did? He looked at me. Really looked. I didn't call them. But I didn't stop it either. I let things slide. I thought, if I could just hold on a little longer. You could make me fall before I found out. Silence, long, heavy, final. Stepped back. You didn't fall in love with me, Eli. You fell in love with the version of me who didn't know better, and I walked out. But even as I did, my heart, traitorous, trembling, still whispered. But it was real, wasn't it? He didn't defend himself. He didn't beg. He just stood there, eyes steady but resigned, like someone who had already accepted losing. And that's when I saw it. That wasn't the face of someone who betrayed me. It was the face of someone who never really believed he could be chosen. I remembered the little things. How he always smiled like he didn't quite believe it was okay to. How he dodged questions about his past. How he flinched, just slightly, whenever I talked about people who made me feel not enough. Maybe I should have seen it sooner. Maybe I didn't want to. Because the truth is, I recognized that look. I wore it once. When I asked him why he lied, why he stayed, he only said one thing. Because I didn't think you'd stay if you knew who I really was. That hit deeper than any deception. It wasn't manipulation. It wasn't strategy. It was fear. The kind that buries itself in you so long, you start thinking it's just part of your DNA. Like a child who's been left behind too many times and starts preparing for goodbye before the hello even finishes. I left without another word. But the silence in me wasn't anger anymore. It was something else. Something softer. Sadder. If someone never believed they were worthy of being loved, can you really blame them for trying to hold on to it any way they could? I didn't say anything else. No dramatic walk-off. No clever final words. Just quiet. I left him standing in that room like a question I didn't want to answer. The city felt colder than usual. My hands shook, but not from the wind. I kept replaying it. His voice, his eyes, the way he didn't chase me. That hurt the most. Not the lie. Not even the truth behind it. But the fact that he thought I wouldn't stay if I knew him. That maybe, deep down, he never really trusted me with the real version of himself. That night, I sat at my laptop. Opened a blank email. Typed his name in the to field, then deleted it. I wrote for hours. Deleted. Rewrote. You could have told me the truth. I would have listened. You didn't have to be someone else. You just had to be real. But I never hit send, because I didn't know if I was angry or just heartbroken. And I didn't want to hand him my pain, all wrapped up in neat sentences, like he deserved to understand it right now. Instead, I closed the laptop, saved the draft, and tried to breathe. Life didn't stop just because I was heartbroken, so I went back to it. I reopened my weekend art classes. The studio smelled like oil paint and dusty sunlight again. Kids tracked colors across the floor. I let them. Some messes are good. I started painting again, too. At first, just small things, color studies, abstract strokes. But it helped. Every time I dipped the brush into paint, it felt like I was choosing myself again. People asked where I had been. I said I needed a break. No one asked about him, because I had never told anyone about him, and that made it easier to pretend he hadn't happened. But truth is, some mornings still hurt. Like when I'd find my phone in my hand, my thumb hovering over the chat we never finished, or when someone would say something kind in a way that sounded like him. I didn't erase him, but I didn't speak of him either. It was a quiet grief, the kind you carry in your chest like folded paper, still there, still creased, but hidden. I poured it into my work, a new piece every week. Not about him, not exactly, but about what it felt like to want something and then have to walk away from it. And little by little, the weight shifted. I didn't check my inbox waiting for a reply. I didn't scan the sidewalk hoping to bump into him. I stopped waiting, and when the paint dried at the end of the day, I'd lock the door, flick off the lights, and walk home alone. Still breathing. Still standing. Still me. It came on a Tuesday. Just a plain brown envelope slipped under the studio door. No stamp, no return address, no name. At first, I thought someone left their portfolio for review. Students do that sometimes. But when I opened it, the first thing I saw was paperwork, a lease agreement. 12 months, paid in full. My name on the line, the address of my studio. I sat down slowly, heart hammering before I even saw the note tucked behind it. It was handwritten. Only 2 short lines. I don't expect forgiveness. I just hope the space gives you room to keep becoming who you are. That was it. No signature, no apology. No attempt to explain or rewrite the past. And somehow, that hurt more than if he had begged. Because he wasn't asking for anything. Not a second chance. Not even a reply. Just silence, where he used to be. Just space. I stared at the paper for a long time. Felt something rise in my chest I couldn't name. Gratitude? Anger? Closure? Maybe all of it. Because even though the gesture was quiet, almost invisible to anyone else, I knew. I knew the handwriting. The way he curled his lowercase e's. The clean, exact spacing like he couldn't afford to leave things messy. That was Eli. Always trying to fix something. Even when he was the one broken. I folded the note once, didn't throw it away. Just tucked it into my drawer, next to the email I never sent. And that night, when I turned off the studio lights, I whispered into the dark, "Thank you. But that doesn't mean I'm ready." The next morning, I didn't open my inbox. I didn't scroll through messages hoping he'd follow up. Instead, I walked into the studio, locked the door behind me, and pulled out a fresh canvas. This time, I didn't sketch first. No planning, no hesitating. I just started painting. The colors came fast, raw, unfiltered. Blues that bled like bruises, yellows that cracked through like light trying to break free. Strokes that didn't hide behind clean lines or perfect balance. The image formed slowly. A figure, standing in front of a door. The door was open. The world outside wasn't defined. but the figure was stepping through it. Shoulders pulled back. No fear. I titled it, No More Hiding, because that was what it felt like. I wasn't painting for closure, or forgiveness, or for him. I was painting for me. But when I finished, I realized I wanted him to see it. Not to hurt him. Not to give him hope. Just to show him that I had kept walking. And that he didn't need to carry the weight of what he'd broken. One of my students, Harper, 14, sweet, always early, offered to drop off supplies near downtown, close to Sinclair Tower. I wrapped the canvas gently, tucked a small note inside. No signature, no return address, just a message. I'm still becoming, and I'm not afraid anymore. I handed it to Harper and smiled. No one knew what was inside. But if he saw it, if he still cared, he'd understand exactly what it meant. It was a Thursday, the kind of afternoon that smelled like rain before it hit. I was setting up for my afternoon class, unpacking brushes, mixing bass tones, when I saw him. Eli. He stood just outside the glass door for a second, unsure. Then quietly he stepped in. He didn't speak, didn't ask permission, didn't try to explain. He just walked over to the supply shelf, picked up the rag, and started wiping the board. Like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like he'd never left. The kids didn't notice. They were too busy chattering, smearing color across the paper like it was a race. But I saw every movement he made. How gently he picked up each paint cup. How he grouped the reds and yellows like he remembered how I liked it. How he didn't look at me once. It would have been easier if he had come in crying or apologizing or pretending none of it happened. But he didn't. He just showed up and moved like someone who was trying to earn their place without taking up space. I said nothing. Not because I wasn't feeling anything, but because I was feeling everything. Confusion, relief, annoyance. Something dangerously close to hope. When class started, he stayed in the back, sitting cross-legged beside the sink, quietly rinsing out jars. Letting the kids hand him messy palettes and splattered brushes, he smiled at them, not at me. And I realized something strange. He wasn't there for me this time. He was just there, present, useful, silent. And when the last child waved goodbye, when the room emptied into golden hour, he stood up, nodded at me, and walked out the door. Still no words. But something inside me whispered. Maybe some things don't start with grand gestures. Maybe they start again in silence. When the door clicked shut behind him, I stood there for a long moment, hands still damp from washing paint trays. No goodbye. No, please forgive me. Just his quiet presence. And then the absence again. Sat down in the back of the studio, where the late sunlight poured in across the floor like warm honey. And I thought, he didn't come to win me back. He didn't ask for anything. Not closure. Not even understanding. He just came, helped, cleaned up a mess he didn't create this time, and left. There was no performance, no manipulation, none of the quiet, practiced charm I remembered from our first messages. And oddly, that said more than any apology ever could, because it meant he wasn't trying to rewrite what happened. He knew the damage, and instead of asking to be forgiven, he was simply willing to stay near the mess without complaint. That night, I stayed late, wiping down the easels one by one, thinking about how long I had waited, not just for love, but for love that didn't come with pressure or noise, the kind that respected space and showed up without demand. Was I ready to let him back in? Not yet. But I wasn't angry anymore. That surprised me. I didn't feel rage in my chest. Only quiet. And sometimes, quiet means you're no longer fighting. You're just breathing. Maybe that was the beginning of peace. Not forgiveness. Not a reunion. Just the absence of war inside me. And in that stillness, I allowed one small truth to surface. He didn't ask for my heart again. He just offered his presence. And for now, that was enough. It had been sitting in the corner of my studio for weeks. The canvas I couldn't name at first. But one night, without planning, I took it out, set it on the easel, and began. It wasn't like the others. This one wasn't trying to hide anything. It was a man. Not sharply defined, but soft around the edges, bathed in a golden light that came from somewhere just out of frame. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't sad either. Just still, like someone, learning how to stand in his own skin. The background was layered with pale strokes, a mix of blues and rust, like memory and shame intertwined. But the light around him held firm. I titled it, "The One Who Tried to Understand Me. Not loved, not saved, just tried." That mattered, because even if he had hurt me, even if we never found our way back, there was truth in how he'd shown up clumsy. Too late, but not pretending. I wrapped the painting myself. No note, no return address. I left it at the front desk of the building I knew he still worked in. The receptionist asked for a name. I just smiled and said, "It'll make sense when he sees it." And I walked out. Lighter. Because sometimes closure doesn't come from answers. It comes from giving something away. Something honest, and letting it speak for itself. He asked if I could meet him on a Sunday morning. No context. Just a time and an address. I almost didn't go. But curiosity is a strange thing, especially when it's wrapped in silence, and you've been waiting for closure that never comes with words. The street was quiet, tucked between a bakery and a bookstore I used to love. He stood outside a weathered building, white brick, tall windows dusted with time. He didn't say much. Just, "Come in." The space was empty, bare walls, wooden floors scarred by decades of footsteps. But the light, it was beautiful, soft, real, like something breathing. I looked around, confused. Then I turned back to him. He held out a small envelope. Inside was a single key. No note, just a folded lease agreement with my name printed at the top. A gallery space. 1 year. Paid. In full, I stared at it, then at him. "I didn't ask for this," I said. "I know," he replied quietly. "That's why it's yours." I didn't cry. I didn't run to hug him. I just stood there, stunned by the quiet dignity of the gesture. Because this wasn't about making things right. It was about finally giving me space to be seen. On my own terms. Without his name. Without our story tied to it. Just mine. And in that moment, I realized maybe this wasn't an apology. Maybe it was respect. Didn't say thank you. Not because I wasn't grateful, but because the words didn't fit anymore. They felt too small, too polite for something that had cracked something open in me. After he left, the gallery echoed in quiet. It smelled faintly of dust and old paint. The kind of silence you don't fill. You just stand inside it and let it press against your ribs. I wandered around, fingers trailing along the window frames, stopping by the empty table near the back. That's where I placed it. The old phone, the one I'd used when we started messaging, back when he was just a stranger replying to the wrong number, back when his name wasn't Eli, back when mine wasn't a woman guarding every inch of herself. I hadn't used it in weeks. The battery was dead, but I had kept it, maybe out of habit. Maybe out of memory. But now, I didn't need it anymore. Because that version of me, the one who whispered into a screen at midnight, she was fading. She wasn't broken, just finished, and that mattered. So I set it down gently on the wood. Stepped back. Didn't text. Didn't call. Just left it there. Like closing the final page of a book that had already written the ending. And maybe, in some quiet way, that was my thank you. There was no press release. No camera crews. No hashtags or curated captions. Just a handwritten note taped to the gallery window. Open tonight. Come as you are. And they did. Not in droves. Not in high heels or suits. But in comfortable shoes, paint-stained aprons, old coats, people I'd taught. People who'd seen my work when it was still unfinished. People who'd seen me when I was still unfinished. A student I hadn't heard from in 3 years brought flowers. My old neighbor baked cinnamon cookies and whispered, "I knew you'd do it. I never doubted you." We didn't talk about Eli. No one asked, and somehow that felt like grace. The paintings hung quiet on the walls, nothing flashy, nothing loud, just color, emotion, pieces of me I wasn't ashamed of anymore. At the far end was the piece I thought I'd never show. Not hiding anymore. I'd rehung it hours before opening. Not because it was perfect, but because it was honest. A girl standing in the middle of a storm, hair wild, hands open, face turned toward the light. Even if she didn't fully believe she deserved it yet. That was the story I wanted people to take home. Not the rumors. Not the love story that almost happened. Just this. That showing up is enough. That quiet survival is still survival. That healing doesn't always look like moving on. Sometimes it looks like staying. And for one night, in that little gallery that still smelled like fresh paint and cinnamon cookies, I stayed. That night, after everyone had gone, I sat alone in the gallery. The lights were still warm. The room smelled like paint, and stories, and maybe a little peace. He had come. I saw him. He didn't say a word. Just stood quietly in the far corner, eyes fixed on one painting. It wasn't the most colorful, or the biggest. But it was the one that held the truth. A figure in soft light, back turned slightly, as if walking toward something, not away. Title: The One Who Tried to Understand Me. I didn't go over, didn't interrupt his silence. I just let the moment be what it was. And later, when the last light was turned off, when the gallery felt like mine again, I pulled out my phone. For once, I didn't hesitate. No drafts, no edits. I typed, "You don't have to stand in the doorway anymore, if you still want to come in." And then I hit send. No wrong number, no secret name, no pretending, just me. And this time, I wasn't hiding behind a screen. I wasn't waiting for someone to guess how I felt. This time, I didn't ask if I'd be forgiven. I didn't ask for anything, except maybe a beginning. I used to think love had to be loud to matter. Big words, clear answers. Perfect timing, but real life rarely gives you that. Sometimes the most honest moments happen in silence. In what we don't say. In the things we write, but never send. I know because I did that. For years, I told myself it was safer to love quietly, to let things stay almost, to call it timing when really, I was just afraid. But here's what I've learned, and maybe it's the only thing that matters. Silence might protect you, but it won't free you. You don't have to shout to be heard, but you do have to speak, even if your voice shakes. Even if the ending isn't neat or fair, because holding back doesn't make the pain smaller. It just makes it quieter. And sometimes quiet things hurt the most. So if there's something you're carrying, a truth, a letter, a version of you someone never got to meet, maybe it's time. Not to force a response. Not to change anyone's mind. Just to finally give yourself permission to let it go. Or let it begin. And if you're wondering, does he deserve to be forgiven? Maybe that's not the right question. Maybe the real question is, do you deserve to move on without carrying the weight of silence any longer? Only you can answer that. But I hope you do, because loving out loud, even just once, is still better than never being known at all. If this story made you pause, even for a second, to remember someone, to forgive someone, or maybe just to see yourself a little clearer, hit like. And if you believe in stories that don't scream for attention but still stay with you, subscribe. We're building a quiet corner here, and there's always room for you.